Welcome to Sang Intermediate Scratch. This is lesson one. So basically, if you missed lesson one, you're going to be watching this video and I'll go over what we learned today in class. So, Zoom rules, awards, schedule, you'll all go over them in the next class that you attend. So let's just hop right into what we went over. So, first of all, we did a little review. What this means is basically just reviewing essentially uh, Scratch beginner and some of just like some basic material, just so we all remember, the basic stuff, and we can hop into the new material of intermediate. So first of all, we have action blocks. What these are they are rectangular in shape, and they let you do things, right? That's where the name action blocks come from. It's letting us do an action. If you look at my screen here, you'll see we have like move 10 steps, or maybe wait a second, go to X, Y, basically just in action, right? Those are all actions. And here's a small little exercise you can try. Feel free to pause the screen and try to make a sprite walk 10 steps 5 times and spin in a circle. You can pause the video here and try and do that. I'm just going to move on though. So next we have conditional blocks. Conditional blocks are pointy shaped. They are in a hexagonal shape, but a little longer. If you kind of understand, you can see the images here. You'll see that they have two sort of triangles on the right, and then the code itself or the text is in a sort of rectangle. So it's pointy, I guess you could say. And what do? They check if something is right or wrong and outputs the correct answer. If you know what a Boolean is, that's basically what a conditional block is. It'll check if something is true or false, and then it'll tell you true or false. You can find these in operators. What I mean by operators is the operators section. If you look at my image here, you'll see a green circle with operators under there. And if you click on that, that is where you can find some conditional blocks. You'll also notice that the circle is green and all of these blocks are green. It makes it a little easier for you to find your blocks and what section they are in. All right, next we also have reporter blocks. So reporter blocks have an oval shape or a long circle shape, and they return a numerical value. These can also be found under the operator section. As you can see, they're also green, but sometimes you might find them in variables and other sections. What do the operations include? We have addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. These are just the basic operators. And then you can also have pick a random number. You'll notice a similarity between all of these boxes. They return a number, right? You have something plus something, something minus something, so on and so forth, and then pick a random number, right? These all give numbers, and that's what it basically means by return of numerical value, right? All right, next we have if statements. So if statements perform an action if something is true, but if it is false, then it'll do nothing. That's where the name comes from, if statements. If something is true, then do something. And you can see on the right side of my screen, we have an if statement, but you'll notice underneath it, we also have another if statement, but this one looks a little bit different. It actually has an else and then another section underneath it. What this is an if-else statement. An if-else statement performs an action if something is true, but if it is false, it'll perform a different action. So an if-else statement is very helpful for when we say we're asking a question and we want to have like, oh, if something is true, then do this, but if it's false, do something else. But then we can also use if statements if we don't want to do something if our condition is not met. Okay, next we have loops. So loops repeat an action over and over a certain amount of times. This can either be for a set amount of times or forever. You'll notice if I look at my box on the right hand side of my screen, we have a repeat 10 times and a forever, right? What repeat 10 times does is it repeats 10 times, right? We have that 10 in the circle. But the circle also means that we can change our value. So we can do repeat 1 time, repeat 2 times, repeat 3 times, repeat 10 times, repeat a million times. And if we want to repeat infinitely, we have the forever loop. You'll notice a difference between the repeat and the forever loop though. You're gonna have to look a little bit closer, but if you see at the very bottom of both blocks, the forever loop is flat, right? It's a straight line, but the repeat block isn't a straight line. In Scratch, the bumps, right, or the divots inside the block is how you connect separate blocks to it. But the forever loop doesn't have anything under it because you can't have something go after forever. What this is sort of like, having a number greater than infinity. You can't because, it's infinite. You can't be more than that. It's going on and getting higher and higher. Okay, now, oh, oops, sorry. Variables. Okay. What is a variable? A variable is an item that can hold a value or string. Variables can make your code simpler and are very helpful in code. If you don't really understand that, a metaphor I like to use is a box, right? You can think of a variable as a box, right? And inside this box, I can put whatever I want into it, and that's what my box will be equal to. That's what my variable is equal to. I can have anything I want in my box, right? I can put a word, I can put a banana, I can put the number 3, right? And then if it's a number, right, um, think maybe I have like one orange inside of it. I can add oranges inside of it to make my variable equal to more, but I can also subtract from it to make it less. So I can make my variable equal to 0, right? If I have 1 and I subtract 1. But if I want to add more, I can also add more and have it go from 0 to 1. You can also make, for Scratch, right? You can make your variable visible and invisible on the canvas. If you don't know what the canvas is, it's in the top right of your Scratch screen, and it's basically where your sprite is and where everything that your code does appears. You'll see on the right hand side of my screen that we have a blue check mark next to our lives variable and a non-checked check mark box next to scroll X. The lives variable is visible because you can see the check mark, whereas the scroll X is not visible on the canvas because there is no check marks. You can also make a new variable. So say you want more than one variable in your code. You can make a new variable by clicking on the make a variable box right above your variable blocks, right? And what will happen is if you click on this box, then it's going to show a pop-up. I believe it's a blue pop-up, and it'll have variable name. What you're going to do is you're going to write your variable name, click done, and then you'll have a new variable where you can set your variable to something, or you can change it. All right, that's it for our review. Next, we're going to go over some new material. So, what are we going to go over? Broadcasting. Broadcasting is located in events. They activate another part of the code using a message, and this message can be sent through the entire Scratch program. Now, that in itself isn't very helpful. It can be very confusing. So let me sort of break it down for you. If you look at the right-hand side of my screen, you're going to see all of these blocks in the events section. These are not all used in broadcasting. You only have the bottom 3. So if you look at my screen, right, look at the very bottom right, you'll have when I receive message 1, broadcast message 1, broadcast message 1, and wait. Those are the 3 main blocks we'll use for broadcasting, or the only 3 blocks we'll be using for broadcasting. When I receive message 1, you'll notice that it has a sort of round end of the top. What that means is it starts a program. But this doesn't actually send out the message. When you send out a message, right, that's usually the first step. And then in Scratch, right, the first step is usually the blocks that have the round part, right? But in broadcasting case, we actually have to send out the message first, which is the rectangular, the action block. And we'll have this in a separate piece of program. So in a separate program where that program runs and sends out a message. And then we have another program that starts once you get the message. These will not be in the same program, or you could say sprite, I guess. They won't be in the same sprites program because the purpose of broadcasting is to send it to different sprites, to maybe the background or something. And yeah, essentially you can think of broadcasting as a sort of bridge between different sprites, or a sprite in the background, or 2 backgrounds, I guess. Because in Scratch, the sprites codes aren't, you can't connect them sort of. Say if I want to have like two sprites and I want in a game, right? If one loses, the other also loses. I can't directly do that in both their codes. I have to use broadcasting. Say, oh, okay, one character died or lost, right? So the other one also loses, and that's what we use broadcasting for. All right, here's a sort of exercise for you to do, just so you get the gist of broadcasting. What you want to do is you want to create two sprites and send a message from one to the other, making them do an action. Now, what do I mean by doing an action? I mean just using an action block. It doesn't really have to be anything complicated. You just want something to confirm that you sent and received the message. So feel free to pause the video now and do that. Otherwise, I will be going over the answer now. Okay, so this is the answer. It's not going to be your answer, or it might be, but this is just a answer, okay? It's not the answer. There are infinite amounts of answers. What you're going to have here first is you're going to have sprite 1 having a when green flag clicked to start the program, right? And then it's going to have an action. In this case, it's repeat 20 times to move 10 steps. And then we're going to broadcast our message 1, our first message. You can have custom messages and you can create more and more. So it's not, your message might not be message 1, but in this case it is. Next, we're going to have in our second sprite, when I receive message 1, or the message, right, to start its program. And then repeat 10 times, move 10 steps, which is basically our action. Feel free to basically check your work and see if both your sprites did your action. And if they did, give yourself a pat on the back. Good job. I know it can be kind of complicated. If it didn't work, feel free to go and check your program again. Make sure you have at least like one when green flag clicked and a broadcast message, and then when I receive message 1 in a separate sprite. This is our big project for the session. If you're an intermediate Scratch, you've probably done at least beginning Scratch, so you understand how we have projects for each session. So our session for intermediate Scratch is a platformer. You might not know what a platformer is. So let me just go over the game requirements first, and then I'll show you an example. So some game requirements are scrolling with over 4 sprites, movement of your player, your sprite, and a finish line, at least one enemy, having a thumbnail slide, and using broadcasting and variables. All of these are going to be taught throughout our 6 lessons. So if you don't understand what scrolling is, or how you're going to make a thumbnail slide or enemy, we'll go over those in time. But let me first show an example project, and I'll go over what we have in it, right? So this is our thumbnail. We're going to click on this and get immediately teleported into the game. You can see in the top left right of the program, there's a lives, right? And this is the variable that shows up on the canvas that you can make appear or disappear, right? Visible or invisible in the screen. And then we're also going to move, right? So this is the movement of a player. And then if we go a little farther here, we have an enemy, right? This little ghost buddy who can take our life. We have the finish line, right? And then you can also lose lives if you fall off. And if you hit the ghost, you also lose a life. But I'm just not going to do it. So, we can save some time. All right, so hopefully you understood that and, how we want to make our program. Yeah, so let's just hop right into our review. Okay, so what this means is we're done with our class. And feel free to, stop the video here and try to answer these 3 questions on your own. I will go from now. So make sure if you don't want to get spoiled, pause the video and try to answer them yourself. Otherwise, I will go ahead and answer them right now. So what are the 3 main types of blocks? They are action, conditional, and reporter blocks. If you can remember, you have a rectangle, a pointy or a hexagon shape, and a circle shape / oval. What is the purpose of broadcasting? It's to send a message through the program. If you remember my metaphor, it's like a bridge between the 2 different sprites, or not even 2 sprites. It can be 3, 4, 5, any amount of sprites. And then what two blocks do you need for broadcasting? You need a broadcast and a receive block. Yeah. Oh, if you did not understand that, I have a special slide for you here. Okay, we have office hours. What is office hours? How do we do it? Where, when, why, who, how. Office hours is an hour, so it's not really office hours, it's an office hour. It's 4:15 to 5:15 on Tuesdays and Sundays, PST. So if you're not PST, make sure you adjust for that, right? And then also, we have a Zoom link for that. It will be in the same email as the one this video is in, I believe. And basically, what we have is we have a bunch of qualified teachers there who will help you with any problems or questions you have, and you can feel free to just drop in. You don't have to let us know. It's up to you when you want to go. You can come at 5. Preferably, you'd want to come at 4:15, but you can also come at like 5. You can come at like 5:05, or you can come at like 4:30, whatever you want. And you can also leave whenever you want. You can come for like 5 minutes and leave when your problem solved or anything. And yeah. So that's it for today's lesson. Thank you for listening. Um, Not much more to say. Have a good day. Yeah. Bye.